Say the Semantics, episode 298. It is March 11th, 2025. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on for a bit about some shit. Recording this on a Wednesday afternoon / evening. It is partway through the week, halfway through, obviously. If you can count the days, halfway through the week. Been a couple of days since kind of the daylight savings. My body is still adjusting to it. I don't know. I don't know. I do feel better today than I did like yesterday. No, it's not Wednesday. What am I talking about? It's Tuesday. Oh my goodness. It's Tuesday, not Wednesday. I don't know why I thought it was Wednesday. It would be halfway through the week if I was recording this on Wednesday, but no. It's fine. It's fine though. I am feeling a little better after the last couple of days, just adjusting to the time change and everything. But there is still kind of this general drowsiness that I do feel. Like right now, it's sort of like almost like five. It's around 5 something, right? So typically it would be like 6 on most. If it was not changed, right? So it feels, or no, it would be like 4 now. It would be around like 4-ish. So that feels a little weird. But anyways, yeah. Just wanted to kind of spend a little time catching up on some stuff, talk about the Warriors game yesterday, general kind of standings position, and talk about some other teams around the league and kind of the positions that they're in, maybe some of the history that's being made right now. Lots to kind of get into. Just wanted to kind of spend some time doing that. I haven't been able, just time wise, it's been hard to kind of squeeze in games. I haven't been able to league, surf on League Pass recently. Mainly just been kind of focusing on the Warriors, and maybe some other things that I've been kind of interested in, but mostly Warriors related and adjacent, right? As I've talked about regarding teams that are sort of within the standings of the Warriors, whether it's like a game back or whatever. But it's still very tight. It's still gonna be difficult, obviously, right? We're like a half game above the Wolves, a game above the Clippers, and now there's a little bit of separation, 2 games above the Kings after their last couple of losses. So that creates a little bit of a buffer between them, but still not quite enough, right? We do have a fairly favorable schedule kind of moving forward. So we played the Trailblazers yesterday, and I think it was one of those games that you like to see, where you don't have to have Steph going off. You don't need to have the starters or anyone playing, excessive amounts of minutes, right? I think there was definitely some a push by Portland, like in the third quarter, where I think we were up by like a decent amount leading into halftime, and they sort of came back and got it to single digits, but then but it never felt like they really had any control. The Warriors were able to kind of take that control back and really just sort of extend the lead and just hold on to that until the end of the game. But I think it has been very just reassuring. One, shout out to GP2 for his performance. He had a career high 26 points. He was just making his shots. He was making his threes, which has been I think it's a nice addition to have, on top of his his excellent defense, right? If he can kind of be a 3-and-D sort of guy more consistently, leading into the playoffs and that kind of thing. Obviously, I'm not expecting him to put up another performance like this, right? Unless, there's going to be another weaker opponent down the stretch towards the end of the season, but like in the playoffs, like you aren't gonna, you most likely aren't gonna get like a 20-point outburst by him. However, if he's able to get like a couple of threes like each game and be somewhat of like a perimeter threat, and he is like an excellent cutter, right? Like every time in most situations where he does score, it's him on, at the glass, in the paint, whatever, right? Like he's always, it feels like he's making the right reads in terms of, being effective on the offensive end, right? But if he can just add like a little bit to his shot making, that would be awesome. You know what I mean? Like if he's just able to, again, put up some shots on the perimeter, I think that would be a really useful kind of thing to have, especially if like, you're in a situation, you're kind of in a bind where teams are really just like completely, you know doubling staff or just making it difficult for, other players in the lineup. Like if he's able to kind of do something, add a little bit of energy, which he's known to do, I think it could be really helpful in a lot of key situations, right? And of course, like his defense is just always been excellent. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy that we've continued to kind of have him throughout the years. Of course, there was that one stint where he went to Portland in like a trade or whatever, and it didn't work out, and there was like that whole medical issue because they didn't like disclose his medical history. Luckily, like it worked out for us, but yeah, there was just kind of that weird little stint for 1 year. But outside of that, he has been an incredible contributor, and just one of our more consistent players in terms of having like at least a defensive impact on things, right? So great to see him, go off like that. He had like 15 points in the first half, which is like wild, and he wasn't particularly close. He has certain moments where he pulls off these just crazy dunks. For a guy his frame and just the elevation and the jump he has is really kind of crazy. Like if you look at his highlight dunks, he has like quite a few. Like he's able to kind of get up there. And he almost, well, he tried to attempt one on Klingon, but it just didn't really work out. Like Klingon didn't even do anything. Like he just sort of stood there and kind of batted away at it. But I mean, it's a worthwhile attempt, and that is like another facet of his game that he's able to bring. Is just like if he's able to pull off a stunt like that and having it work out, it just brings this level of energy to the team and to the fans and everything like that. So nice to see him kind of put on, do some things on the offensive end, and yeah, hopefully this sort of continues, and he's able to continue to be like a contributor for this team going into the playoffs. Moses Moody has just been super consistent since he's started. I think I saw a stat where when he starts games, the record, and of course this might be a bit of like a thing where, because it is in conjunction with him, his start kind of following the Jimmy Butler trade, you might kind of conflate the two, right? But I think it does mean something where when he is in the starting lineup, the record is 14-1, and I think that is significant. He's been great. Like this is the kind of the level of play that I think a lot of there are some like hardcore Moses Moody fans in the fan base. They're like, I can't say that I was like a huge fan of his, because I never, there were moments where you saw like flashes of like, dude, he is like kind of like the archetypical like 3-and-D guy. He had certain games where he just like couldn't miss from three, and then like last year, like and then like Steve Kerr for some reason like benched him, and that was like a whole discussion last year, and why he couldn't like get minutes or whatever. Like that was I don't know, that was like a whole thing. But now that he is actually getting significant minutes, he's really proving it. Like he's really been proving that he can be a consistent factor on this team. And I think him alongside someone like Jimmy, where it's sort of, it takes off a lot of the weight in kind of a similar fashion to, Jimmy taking the weight off of, just other players in the on the roster. It kind of allows Moses to sort of be like, you're not exactly, if you are like on the opposing side, I don't know how much of a like a scouting report necessarily that you would be putting on someone like him, because you don't really necessarily think of him as like one of the X factors on the team. But the way he's been playing, like he has been pretty significant. Like he's just been like super solid, like nothing crazy or out of the ballpark, but he had 20 points last game. And he's had some nice scoring moments over the course of the last, few weeks since the Jimmy trade. So it's like, maybe this is kind of, just sort of like finding a way to maximize him alongside players, where he is in a lineup with Jimmy Butler and Steph and Draymond and all that. Like he can kind of be, the threat on the outside. And plus he's been, he's had some really good moments defensively. I mean, the moment that kind of comes to mind was in the game prior with the Pistons towards the end of the fourth quarter. Like Cade was bringing up the ball and he was just hounding him, and he caused Cade to turn over, and he essentially kind of led them to, that was like a huge momentum change, right? Like I think Warriors were up by like 4 or something like that, and like they were able to kind of secure a better, just kind of a better point difference, leading up from that point. And so I don't know, he's just been really solid, and I feel that he can just kind of, if he can really stay with this level of consistency, I don't expect, like, again, I don't expect like someone like GB2 to do something, to have like a game like that again, have a career night or anything like that. But I think with Moody, it's a little bit more, you can put a little bit more faith in him having like a, maybe like 3 or 4, 3-pointers in a night, and really just kind of helping kind of help out with kind of the balancing of the scoring. And that goes with Buddy Hield as well. He had a nice game. There's another stat where it's like if Buddy scores more than 20 points or something like that, the Warriors are like 20-4 or something like that. Again, maybe some of that is like, it's not necessarily causation. He's not the one that is like willing this team to win. Like it might just be more of a factor that he performs better against maybe some of the weaker teams in the league, and so he's able to kind of take advantage of that. But it's like, look, man, if he is a contributor, if he is able to get his shot off and really do something on the offensive end, like it would be awesome if he could be like this, every game. But he is just, we know, like, just throughout his career, like we've come to kind of the realization as fans, myself, like how the cycle thing is a real thing, man. If he gets a hot hand, he's able to kind of shoot out of like a slump, have a really good game, and the Warriors win. But when he is chucking up threes and it is just completely bricking, or he's just making just some ill-advised decisions on the offensive end, you kind of look at him as a net negative, unfortunately, right? Because he is ultimately a, just kind of a streaky shooter kind of player. And if he's not contributing in in a way to that, if he's not scoring, basically, he's just not he's not going to be useful on the floor, right? So that's a little, it's just you really like seeing him score because he has a great shooting form. When it goes in, it feels it's very satisfying. Um, he gets the release off like super quickly. It's great. Like he's fun to watch when he's on, but when it's not working, it's just like it brings the team down in a lot of instances. So it's such like a hot and cold kind of experience with him, as I'm sure other other fan bases have gotten to understand pretty well. So I don't know. He might be like a potential like X factor of sorts if we do get into like a playoff situation where like other players on the team are not scoring and we just need some sort of offensive punch. He might be able to kind of provide that, but it's just not reliable. Historically, it has not been reliable, unfortunately. So I don't know. It's like you kind of have to have your expectations be, with him especially, you kind of have to have your expectations really level. Just like if he can give you, look, man, if he can give like, I don't know, 8 points just consistently, maybe get that to 10, that would be awesome. You know what I mean? And if he is able to, just get more than that, it's like awesome. But I just don't think there should be a ton of expectations for him to be able to like elevate this team necessarily. I don't know. There's been too many cases of him not like having like cold stretches and just being completely ice cold that I'm a little afraid to put any stock into him being a winning player necessarily. That might be a bit harsh, but I don't know. It's like if he does something, it's a plus. I just hope that like when it comes to playoff rotations, he doesn't get more minutes than what we think he deserves, right? If he's just not doing if he's not scoring at all, just take him out. Like just don't even put him in the rotation and just sort of like shorten the rotation, right? I mean that's gonna happen anyway in a playoff situation. So yeah, we'll see if he even like really gets significant minutes in a playoff slash play in game, right? We will see about that. But yeah, just like a good balanced scoring effort yesterday. And yeah, I mean it wasn't not like not like an exceptional win, but it doesn't matter now. Like every win counts. I know I've been repeating that, but it's true. Like every single win from here on out counts. We are kind of neck and neck with the Wolves, and even if we lose something, we would kind of be in the same, just sort of same batch of teams with the Timberwolves and the Clippers. So it's just like I don't really want to. I don't really want to get into that situation. Let's just try to move up. Just focus on just winning. You know what I mean? I mean, the team is going to focus on winning. I will worry about the standings and that kind of thing. I mean, if the Warriors if they just keep on winning, right? And they're somehow able to string a freaking 15 plus winning streak, it's like, all right, then they can kind of secure a potential sixth seed or fifth if any of those teams that are kind of in the middle there, like a Houston, which is just up ahead, maybe they fall. We'll see. We will see. Speaking of winning streaks, I feel like I haven't talked about them in a while. I know I mentioned the Cavs a while back. But it's been kind of a while. I've talked about the Thunder, like some of the great, some of the big teams. Talked about the Thunder, talked a little bit about the Celtics, but yeah, the Cavs they're on another like 13 game winning streak, which is like their third this season, which is crazy. Like I can't even. It's like three separate 13 game winning streaks, like 10 plus game winning streaks. I don't know if a team I mean, I'm sure it's like happened, but I can't really think of another team where you're seeing that kind of level of dominance in terms of just getting wins. I don't know. It feels like it's been quite some time since even like the 73 and 10 or 73 and 9 Warriors, right? Was it 73 and 9? 72 and 10. Oh my god, I should know this. Um anyways, like it's it feels like, I don't know. It feels like they're, even at this point, they're still kind of underappreciated a little bit. Um and I think there's like a few factors for that. One, you haven't seen them have like significant playoff success yet, right? I mean, they've made it to like the second round last year, and that's kind of been it so far. And it's like, okay, they're sort of on the younger side, and that it's just they haven't really proven anything yet or whatever. That's kind of like the main knock against them. I've been seeing a lot of comparisons. I've heard a lot of comparisons being made of them to the Atlanta Hawks of like 2014, 15. I think it was 15 or 16, when they won 60 games under Mike Budenholzer. I don't know if that's really. I mean, it's 10 years ago. The league was different and everything, right? Like you can talk about all that, and I think on top of that, I don't know. Well, it doesn't really help that the East was probably still weak at that time, right? So maybe you can kind of make that argument where the Cavs are, dominating a pretty weak Eastern Conference, but they've been winning against the West too. So it's not. I don't think you can really make too much of a comparison there. I'm just trying to remember like that era, because like teams, I think from teams are going to get somewhat forgotten in history. They're going to get overshadowed by whoever won the championship that year, whoever, just like whoever was like the MVP or whatever, those kinds of things. I think the Hawks feel like one of those teams that have gotten maybe just sort of, maybe slightly forgotten. Like I think the fact that they got swept by the LeBron Cavs kind of, sort of eliminates them in a way from discourse in a way. But it is sort of like because it was the most like under the radar. I don't even like remember that season very well. Like, I mean, I guess, it was probably, you know, I think it might have been the first year of LeBron going back to Cleveland and the Warriors. It might have been the Warriors championship year. I don't quite remember. But I mean, I wasn't thinking about the Hawks, right? Like you're not thinking about, like now, I mean, I'm just like, just looking at all of these teams. But when you're younger, you're just only concerned about the team that you're rooting for. But yeah, I don't remember like what exactly it was that made them good. It might be an interesting deep dive, honestly. That might be something that I kind of look at. Just sort of like these interesting teams that were good, but just didn't have success because they ran into LeBron James. It might be in a just kind of an interesting kind of history case there. I do remember this. I do remember they had four All-Stars, and I didn't really feel like any of them really deserved it. Because they had I do remember, I think it was Al Horford, Jeff Teague, Kyle Korver, and I think Paul Millsap. Like when you think of those four players, you're not like wowed. I mean, when I remember like seeing Kyle Korver get in, and I was like, I feel like there's a lot of other like great players that maybe deserve it. Like sure, they might not be on winning teams, but I don't know. It just didn't really it didn't really it just didn't really make sense to me. Like I don't like what was his I feel like his scoring output wasn't even that like crazy. Like sure, maybe he had a very good like 3-point shooting year, and just him being, I don't know, him being lethal from three and him being on like the best team, whatever, just kind of contributed to that. But it's like I don't know if like the stats really support that. Like it was a, and I think that was the only year that he was considered an all-star. Same with like Jeff Teague too. You know what I mean? It's like it's an interesting, I don't know. It's kind of fascinating. I kind of want to take a deeper dive and look back at that time, because like of course like I feel so much of the discourse was kind of dominated by like LeBron, right? I mean, the Heatles, like the Heat was just like the talk for like 5 years or whatever, and then of course you kind of get into the Warriors like dynasty era and that kind of thing. So that sort of in a way kind of just sort of overshadows what other teams were sort of doing at that time in a way, right? Because it's like when you look back, I don't know, like I mean you can make the same case for a lot of eras as well. Like if you go back to like the 90s or that kind of thing, you'll see a lot of instances where it's like the only conversation piece is like the 90s Bulls with with Jordan, right? So I think it's kind of a similar situation with that. And I don't know, it just is I think there are a lot of pieces of history that are just kind of worthwhile to maybe take a look at. Things that I just haven't really considered before. Because those teams, whatever, even if they were good in like the regular season or whatever, they did not win like a championship or something. And so they just completely get like, not shuttered, but they just don't get talked about really. So I don't know. It might be something to kind of take a look at, as I kind of am becoming more interested in a way in kind of the history of the league. Like we know about like the more popular stories or whatever. You're aware of just like the big, the big names and the big teams or whatever. But I mean, there's a lot of I think there are more. There's more to be kind of explored there. I think there's more to kind of look into, outside of the Jordans and like the Magic Lakers or like the Celtics or whatever. There's so much more history to kind of delve into. It's not just limited to the like the victors of that era, right? Like, the history is written by the victors, all that stuff. Same sort of thing kind of applies to sports as well. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think it could be sort of worthwhile to kind of take a look at those things and really just kind of delve into that a lot more, because I think it's worthwhile. I think it might be interesting. So that might be like a case study to kind of put into, to kind of like get into as as like a small project or whatever. I don't know. It might be fun. You know what I mean? It might just be a case where I'm interested now because of the historical context and maybe the comparisons that are being made with the current Cavs and those Hawks of like a decade ago. I don't know. It might be something. It might be something. But it's still super impressive what we've seen from the Cavs, you know what I mean? It just doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, I think earlier on when when they had their like first 10 plus game winning streak, I think some of that was slightly discounted because they were winning against weaker teams, but now they've just continued to just win in general. So it's not like you can't even really make that argument. Now it's just gonna, like, they have a pretty significant, game break between them and the Celtics, so they will likely be the first seed. They've already secured a playoff position in the East, so they're kind of good to go. And yeah, I mean, it feels like just kind of how things are. If the two top teams in the East with the Cavs and the Celtics, if they just kind of continue to play at the level that they do, it feels kind of not a given, of course, but I mean, the East is just so like it's not even comparable to something like the West, where just there's so many unknowns where you could see upsets from lower seeded teams like the Warriors. You know what I mean? Like you could see that. But in the East, it's like, all right, who are the Cavs going to play in the first round? It's going to be like Chicago, Orlando, Miami, or who else is in that mix? Or Atlanta, right? It's like, yeah, I think we'll take Cleveland. I have no faith in any of those teams at their current state, right? And then you can kind of make the same argument for the Celtics, whoever they face off in that kind of area, general area, right? Those whoever in those kind of in the play-in mix, you're like, I don't really expect anything from those teams. So, and then you could, I don't know, you sort of pit them against other teams, whether it's outside of Boston. You pick Cleveland against Milwaukee. They won pretty handedly yesterday. You pit them against like the Pacers or Detroit. You're like, I feel pretty good about my chances with Cleveland. So it kind of feels that it's leading to them being in the conference finals with Boston. So that's kind of what it's going to come down to. I think that's sort of the expectations, right? It just feels a little bit more predictable with the East standings. Like, I just don't, it's really hard to anticipate like a Cinderella run from any of those play-in teams. You're just not going to get another one of those Jimmy Butler Heat runs. You're just not. One, he's not on the Heat anymore. And two, there's just no other level of caliber of player on any of those teams. It's just like, I don't know. Trae Young with the Hawks is maybe the closest thing to where he could have some playoff performance that could be like, oh shit, maybe they could, upset the Celtics or what. I don't know. But that was like the case like a couple of years ago. This Celtics team is different from that. And the Hawks team is also kind of different from that as well. They do have some nice pieces, obviously, as I've talked about, but yeah, the Eastern Conference is pretty. It is interesting because there are, so many. Like, you have clearly the top two teams, but then you just got this like mishmash of other teams as well. Oh, I forgot about New York, but you're just not really with their performances. You're not really. And listen, man, I just looking at it from just history, like a Tom Thibodeau team, it just has its limitations. Like it just has its limitations. It's like, okay, he was like an assistant coach for the Boston Celtics when they won in 2008, but that's just he wasn't the head coach. He wasn't the head coach. He wasn't the one calling the shots. Like it just doesn't it doesn't feel it feels like there is a clear ceiling for Tibbs teams, right? In this kind of era. The minutes thing, I know that gets talked to death, but that is like a real thing. Now Brunson is out. I'm not saying that's like he might have just gotten injured, like regardless, who knows? But look, man, you're running your players into the ground. That's just it. You're running your players into the ground. You saw what happened with Luol Deng. Like it just is not. It's just not sustainable. It's not. Like he can bring your team from and your franchise to, maybe middling or even bad to like good and be like a playoff team, but not a championship team. Not a championship team. So, and I know you could also make the argument that New York just doesn't have the depth or whatever. These might be all just contributing factors to that, absolutely. But I don't know, man. Like I tend to kind of like rely on history. Like you could, it's the same argument for something like a Buddy Hield. Like it's just like history has shown that he is this kind of player. History has shown that Tibbs is that kind of coach, where he just that has his limitations, and it's just not going to be enough to overcome when you are competing for a championship. So I don't know. We'll see. I like the Knicks. I like their players. But I just don't anticipate much from them. And they don't perform well against Cleveland or Boston. They just haven't. That's been a real sticking point. So maybe they win like the first round, but outside of that, you're not really expecting a whole lot from them, unfortunately. But who knows? Maybe they have a run in them somehow. You know. You never know. Today is going to be a pretty bare day in terms of games. There's only 4 games actually going on right now. So I'll see, maybe if I have some time, I'll tune into some of them, but none of them are really all that interesting, to be honest, except maybe the Bucks and Pacers. We'll see if I tune into that, but yeah, it's going to be a pretty quiet day, because yesterday we had a whole slew of games. It was just like, it almost felt like the whole league was playing, but so yeah, today's a little bit more of a quieter day, but yeah, maybe I'll catch some good basketball. I think tomorrow the schedule picks up, and then Thursday is when the Warriors play next. They will be playing the Kings, which I think it'll be a good game. They blew them out last time when they went to Sacramento. I feel this time around maybe they'll have a little bit more to get. I feel like the Kings might bring a little bit more. They don't want to, and also it is going to be an important game for both teams, right? So it could be fun. That could be fun. So I'm looking forward to talking about that. I'll see, I'll just keep an eye out on certain things if anything pops up that catches my eye over the next couple of days. But I don't know if most likely, you know what? I don't know yet. But I'm gonna try to post this tonight. Just reminding myself to post it, and just looking forward to some more stuff. It's been nice. It's been nice out. But it is gonna like rain in the next couple of days, which is kind of a downer, but just gotta enjoy it while you can. So I'm trying to take advantage of that at this moment, and we'll see how I handle the rain for the next. It might be raining for kind of a while, so just getting ready for that. But yeah, anyways, thanks for listening as always. This has been Save the Semantics, signing off.